It's early April, and it's a super exciting time for my 5B garden because the very first thing that comes out in the spring is asparagus. So I need to make sure that I have my asparagus patch taken care of, get it all cleaned up, make sure that I'm protecting the tender spears that are emerging right now from the cold that's going to come over the next couple of weeks, because a few weeks from now, I'm going to be able to harvest my asparagus. And since I planted these crowns 3 years ago, I have let them sit. I've let them grow. I've let them get strong. I've let them develop roots. I haven't tasted my asparagus yet. This is year one of me getting to harvest my asparagus. I'm super excited to harvest my asparagus, and today I'm going to show you how to do it. And the first thing that we want to do now that it's coming time for the spears to emerge is we want to make sure that we clean up our entire asparagus patch. How we do that is by removing the ferns that were allowed to overwinter. Just take a pair of some pruning shears and cut the old ferns down to the ground. But be careful, because remember, you might have some spears already emerging from your crowns. And if so, you don't want to disrupt them. You certainly don't want to cut them with your pruning shears. So be careful, take your time, and ensure you're only cutting back the dead stuff. Now, once you've cleared out all of your dormant ferns, one of the things that you'll notice is that your asparagus spears aren't the only things that enjoy that the soil is warming up. You're also going to see probably a decent bit of weeds. For me, it's a lot of dandelions. This actually looks sometimes more like a dandelion patch right now than it does an asparagus patch. And I don't really mind dandelions. Their flowers attract beneficial pollinators to my garden. But one of the places where I definitely don't want dandelions to grow is in my asparagus patch. Why? Asparagus is super greedy. It does not like competing at all with any other plant, which is why you want to make sure that when you establish your asparagus patch, it's your asparagus patch. You're not growing anything else in it, and you're also making sure that you're clearing out any weeds that are going to try to compete with your crowns. But because it's early enough in the season, and the dandelions are still basically seedlings, their taproots haven't gotten too deep, and the soil is nice and moist, just from some of the April showers that we've been having, that I can easily dig these dandelions out, clean up this bed, and make sure that my asparagus is nice and happy. Now be very careful as you weed in your asparagus patch. You want to make sure that you're not disrupting the crowns at all. This is also why you want to do this early in the season. While the weeds are still seedlings, they're going to be much easier to remove than they would be if they were more established. Once your asparagus patch has been thoroughly weeded, take some time to check out each of the crowns and look at the individual spears that are emerging from the crowns. What you may notice, especially if you have some younger asparagus plants, is that some of the spears aren't really that thick, and that's okay. But what it also means is those are spears that you're probably not going to want to harvest this season, because you can let these spears grow and they will fern out and they will soak in the sun, they will feed the roots, and they will help develop the crown even further for coming seasons. Now the spears that you see like this, that are nice and thick, thicker than a pencil, these are the ones that you're going to be able to harvest this year. So take a look at them, and as soon as they get between 6 to 9 inches long, you can harvest them. Now none of these are that tall just yet, but that's fine. You certainly don't want them to get too tall though. The taller they get, the sooner they are to ferning out, which is stage 2 in the life cycle of the asparagus plant. And once they fern out, they're not great to eat. So you really shouldn't be harvesting them anymore, and you should just let them continue to grow so they can feed the crown for next season. And one of the things that you'll want to do here, especially very early in the season, is you'll want to make sure that you're protecting your asparagus spears as they emerge from any cold snaps that are going to hit. For me, they have forecasts in the high 20s over the next couple of days as the low temperature. So I need to be very careful with my brand new asparagus spears. They can handle a light frost, but a freeze is not something that they will do well with. Now, if they were tall enough, I would just harvest them ahead of the low overnight temperatures. But because none of these are tall enough yet to be harvested, it's still very early in the season, I need to take some different measures. So treat it like any other tender plant. They can't handle frost or freeze. You can cover it up with some plastic. Just make sure that it's not touching the spears. You can also cover it up with individual pots. That's something that you could do here because these grounds are fairly well plotted out. So I could just put some pots on top of each of the crown. And because they're not too tall yet, they're not going to be touching the pots that sit over top of them. Weigh down the pots to make sure that any wind doesn't blow them away, and you'll be fine for a night or two. Another way to protect your tender asparagus spears from the threat of freeze is to cover them with a mulch. Now you can use wood chips, you can use straw, and you can pile them right onto your plant. Be careful with the spears. They are very tender, very delicate. You don't want to break them. But if you cover them, it's going to help retain that heat that is already there in the soil, so it'll protect your spears from the frost. Now, once your threat of frost is gone, you can then delicately remove that mulch and let your spears grow. And now, just about a week later, the risk of freeze is virtually gone, and we're even starting to see some of the asparagus spears pop up through the straw mulch that we laid over it to protect it from the cold. Now's the time to check to see if we're ready for some harvest. Now for your initial harvest, you don't want to go crazy. You don't want to take too much too soon. But if you just clear away some of the straw and take a look at how the spears are doing, you'll be able to see which ones are ready and which ones need a couple more days. Now what we're looking for here is anywhere between 6 and 8 inches for your asparagus spears to let you know that they're ready to be harvested. If you go any smaller than that, they're not going to be ready, they're not going to be as sweet, they're not going to taste as good. And if you let them go too far, you risk them ferning out, actually beginning stage 2 of their life cycle process. And you definitely don't want that to happen, because if you do, they're going to go woody and they are not going to be good eats. When it comes to harvesting your asparagus spears, it's as easy as just cutting them with some pruning shears or with a sharp knife, about 1/2 inch or 1 inch above the surface of the soil. You definitely don't want to cut too deeply. You don't want to harm the crown. And another way to harvest is simply just to grab it at the base and lightly bend it so it snaps. And there it is, the first harvested asparagus spear of the season. I can't wait till it gets inside. I'm gonna eat it now. Oh man. Go around your bed and start harvesting. And remember, you can always come back tomorrow to harvest more. These things, once they emerge and once the weather is warm enough, they start growing quickly. You might even see that your asparagus spears at the height of harvest are growing at a rate of up to 2 inches per day. And if you see any that seem a little bit too thin, less than the width of a pencil, leave them. Let them continue to grow and fern out. Those ferns will feed the crowns for your harvest next year. And once I'm done harvesting, I'm going to put the straw back over these plants. Not because I need to protect them from the cold, but the straw is doing a really good job serving as a weed barrier. And also, if it starts to get a little bit chilly overnight, I don't have to come back out and relay straw over the entire bed. Like we already saw, the asparagus spears do a fine job on their own, growing through the straw. And just like that, asparagus harvesting season has begun. Now, I'm going to go through the rest of my bed and harvest what I can. This isn't a huge yield just yet, but remember, it's the very first one. Starting now, I'm going to come out every single day and check on the bed. And these spears are going to continue to grow, and we're going to have a nice bountiful harvest for the next 6 to 8 weeks. Then we're going to start stage 2, the ferning stage, which is going to help set things up for growth next season. I hope this was helpful information as you start to harvest your asparagus this season. And if you don't grow asparagus yet, hopefully this has inspired you to give it a shot. Happy growing.